As the only Golden Core 7-chambered serpent in existence, I awakened to find myself wanted across the entire world. Not only had elite troops from the capital's 3 great financial clans poured in, but heavy artillery and armed helicopters had pushed deep into the mountains, all because of a single crimson scale of mine, driven to astronomical value on the outside world's markets. Now everyone believed that killing me was their ticket into a new era. Looking at this mob of mercenaries with assault rifles, faces lit up with excitement. I exhaled a long, weary sigh. My massive serpent body became a bolt of crimson lightning cutting through the storm, shredding through curtain after curtain of rain. Gun barrels erupted with tongues of flame, a storm of armor-piercing rounds pouring toward me, hammering into my scales and bursting into blinding sparks. I didn't even blink. My body simply rolled over everything in its path. Ancient trees snapped at the trunk. The shockwave lifted dozens of mercenaries off the ground and hurled them into the cliff face. The sound of shattering bone was swallowed by rolling thunder. Human firearms, worthless before absolute power. These greedy insects had no idea that the crimson scale igniting this war was nothing more than a keepsake I left for an old friend. Several days earlier, an ancient village deep in the mountains. I made my way along the riverbed silt, staying out of every villager's line of sight, until I reached a crumbling rear courtyard. A dying old man lay in a bamboo chair. His name was Lin Yuxiang. In 200 years, he was the last soul who still remembered me. Decades ago, a mountain flood had raged, the village on the edge of destruction. I scattered the storm clouds and drove back the rising waters. The villagers built a temple and carved my likeness, revering me as the mountain god. Now his life was nearing its end. I rose from the water, my vast shadow falling across the courtyard. The old man showed no fear. He struggled and knelt in the mud, both hands soiled with earth. I left him a crimson scale the size of a palm, then turned and sank back into the deep water, a final farewell to a mortal who had known me. But I had underestimated human greed. The old man had barely drawn his last breath when his gambling wretch of a son, Lin Zhuqiang, came running back to the village that very night. He didn't buy his own father a coffin, but tore through every drawer and box until he found the crimson scale. His eyes held no grief, only a twisted, feverish joy. He fled with the relic to the capital, and offered it to the underground sovereign, the Gu clan. Gu clan's eldest daughter, Gu Chuchu, a lunatic stripped of all feeling. She brought her heavy assault forces, and forced Lin Zhiqiang to lead them into my territory. When they entered the mountains, I was coiled on the old camphor tree at the island in the lake's heart. A white fox came walking across the water, taking form as a white-robed figure who knelt beneath the tree. Lord of the mountains, Zhou Ning, a fierce tiger, has risen in the northern peak. It is about to descend and raise a village. I slid down from the old tree, my body like an arrow released from a bow, cutting across the entire mountain forest. At the northern peak's summit, the fierce tiger, Qing Yan, was wreathed in crackling blue-green lightning, preparing to descend and terrorize all below. I landed with a thunderous crash. A gale swept through, and with a casual swat, I scattered Qing Yan's vaunted lightning. He roared and lunged at the cliff, his charge tearing through the air. I rose from the river below, a crimson afterimage extinguishing his lightning in an instant. My massive body coiled around him completely, scales tightening with crushing force, like 10,000 blades slicing through his hide and bone, ringing out sounds of unbearable agony. The white fox arrived, breathless. In recognition of years of goodwill, it offered its own path of evolution to spare the fierce tiger's life. The mountains answered. The white fox's essence merged into my spirit field. I released my grip and looked down coldly. I'm leaving you alive. Guard these mountains for me. Trouble came hard on its heels. Gu Chuchu's mercenaries had pushed deep into my domain. I stirred the mountain forests, pulling dark clouds down like a ceiling. Torrential rain poured down, cutting off every communication signal. The mercenaries panicked completely, firing blindly in all directions. I moved hidden inside the storm, my presence pressing down like a mountain. Each time lightning flashed, another man was dragged into the undergrowth and vanished forever. Lin Zhiqiang collapsed to the ground in terror, but Gu Chuchu stood in the downpour, arms flung wide, eyes blazing. I love you. Be my pet. A thunderous cold laugh rolled from my throat. The rain intensified. Gu Chuchu's eyes flared with dark light, and 33 ancient swords burst from the void, their blades etched with primordial inscriptions, tearing through rain and shadow straight toward my head. Metal rang deafeningly. The ancient swords struck my scales, and were flung back, without leaving so much as a white mark. Gu Chuchu's expression went ice cold. Without a moment's hesitation, she redirected all 33 swords, turning them on her own mercenaries behind her. The blades swept past without mercy, and every man's life force was snuffed out in an instant, bodies crumpling to the ground. The sword's killing aura surged, her power climbing steadily. I had no patience to keep playing. My long tail slipped silently into the undergrowth, then erupted from the shadows, precisely shattering her protective spirit barrier, pinning Gu Chuchu in place, her form suspended in midair by sheer force, life utterly extinguished. A casual flick, and her remains were hurled into the mud. The 33 ancient swords fell, now masterless. I pulled one free with my tail, reversed it, and sent it through Lin Zhiqiang before he could even cry out. And he sank into darkness forever. All 33 swords, now mine. Gu Chuchu's death ignited the capital's financial clans into full fury. The Gu clan patriarch himself stepped into the mountains. My mind barely stirred, and the 33 swords screamed out. The old man, and every shield of Qi around him, turned to ash in an instant. Witnessing the majesty of the convergence of heaven and earth, the mountains erupted completely. The Li, Jia, and Zhao clans, together with the Gu clan's finest elites, poured out. Heavy armored formations rolling forward with a roar, armed helicopters circling with rotors thundering. Elite cultivators at full draw, cutting-edge weapons and ancient armaments woven into a net. Their ambition, to subdue the entire Taihang range, to seize every source of evolution within it. I coiled on the island in the lake, drawing the spiritual energy around me inward, and all 33 ancient swords began to sing a dragon's cry, their power surging to its apex, crimson markings rising along every blade. I rose into the air, the sword formation trailing me like a shadow. The helicopter formation opened fire without mercy. I flew straight into the hail of bullets, and without slamming into the aircraft, they disintegrated in midair. Firelight lit up the night sky. The ground forces raised their heavy artillery. I barely had to think. Crimson blurs streaked out like meteors, slicing every gun barrel clean through. A thunder-wielding cultivator drew his bowstring to full tension, lightning gathering at the tip. Before he could release, a sword flashed, and he fell silent forever. A formation-wielding woman hidden at the back of the crowd deployed a hexagonal array, raging flames roaring to the sky, intending to burn me alive. I retreated into shadow, and reached inside all 6 nodes of the formation. The array violently collapsed back on itself. The woman fled gravely wounded. The mountains had become a slaughterhouse. Fewer than 1 in 10 of the invaders survived. The upper echelons of the clans descended into madness. In a conference room, a group of old monsters with 1 foot already in the grave issued the final order. Deploy the Sunfire, the ultimate thermal weapon, evoking the sun goddess herself. Guided missiles trailed long white tails as they tore through the clouds. The flash instantly seared both my eyes blind. I threw all 33 swords up in front of me, and the pure light and heat swallowed me whole. The mountains were melted, forests reduced to scorched earth. Even the Golden Core's obsidian armor could not hold against destruction on this scale. When the heat faded, I crashed into a crater, spine shattered, outer skin torn apart, scales stripped away across vast stretches of my body. Only one golden eye still held on, barely. The human forces closed in again, with the Zhao clan prodigy at the front. A bronze cauldron channeling primordial divine light overhead, shielding him from the lethal radiation. He stepped closer, cradling a thread of divine flame in his palm, ready to deliver the killing blow. I no longer had the strength to move a single finger. At that moment, a hazy, formless silhouette descended. It had no face, its form dreamlike and unreal. A gentle raise of one hand, and the young man's divine flame froze solid. The bronze cauldron was forcibly suppressed. The silhouette opened both arms, and every source of evolution throughout the entire mountain range lost its spiritual energy. All power converged into its palm, condensing into a single drop of clear liquid, reflecting the stars and the mountains within it. It let the spirit liquid fall upon the crown of my head, like a god bestowing a crown. Before dawn arrives, those who remain here shall remain here forever. The cool voice echoed, and the silhouette dissolved into the wind. Life force erupted. The shattered spine was reborn. Scales reclaimed my entire body, more crystalline and flawless than before. From the crown of my head came a tremendous pressure as branching jade dragon horns grew forth. I rose into the sky, releasing a dragon's roar that shattered the clouds. 5-clawed and sovereign, I stood at the apex of heaven. The Zhao clan prodigy was utterly broken with terror, pinned to the earth by the faint pressure I radiated without effort. I couldn't be bothered to kill him. My form rapidly compressed, taking the shape of a young man who descended onto the scorched earth. Crystal dragon horns at my brow, a crimson tail swaying at my back. The gravely wounded Qing Yan crawled out from the rubble, a casual wave, and golden great dragon blood dripped down. His wounds healed visibly before everyone's eyes. Looking at my form after the transformation, his gaze was filled with shock and reverence. I took the bronze cauldron and sat cross-legged upon the clouds. The human forces had long since fled en route. I did not pursue. The mountains had saved me. I would repay the mountains. I channeled power through the bronze cauldron, spiritual energy across the sky pouring down like a golden waterfall, cascading into the mountain range, flowing into every last corner. Tender shoots pushed up from scorched earth. Withered trees breathed life again. Rain fell, washing away every trace of battle. Deep within Mount Wutai, an ancient temple bell echoed softly. A small deer formed from condensed spiritual energy stepped through the temple gate. It looked at the old monk seated on the meditation cushion. The old monk's head was bowed, all signs of life completely gone. He had passed, and before dawn, the little deer tilted its head, and in the clouds above, the mountain silhouette loomed vast and still. I leaned against the old camphor tree, reading through sutras. Small birds perched along my branching jade horns. I rested against the old tree, turning ancient scrolls. A bolt of pale lightning flashed, and something ancient came to shatter the void. A great tiger of towering, surging flame approached. In its mouth, a volume of the Luo texts, a tribute from the human clans. Their fear that I might act, their fear of reckoning. Just like that, I'd let it go. A low rumble in the throat, the ferocity on his face twisted further. I never said anything about letting it go. I slowly turned a page, eyes not lifting from the scroll. Humans always think they know what I'm thinking. I rose from the trunk, the ancient text still in hand. A few lingering wisps remained in the world. Still left in this world, I will personally send them into oblivion. I raised my head and looked toward the towering Taihan. In a world where the phantom stirs awake, all things are competing to cross over. I idly fed a small fruit to the birds perched above my head, sent the bronze cauldron out, its inhabitants stirring and moving. But one small deer was missing. Its scales had not yet returned to where they belonged. I stood, and golden candlelight ignited in my eyes. Crimson scales shimmered into being along my form. Wind rose. I became a crimson jade afterimage and shot straight into the sky. Before the ancient temple gate, an old monk was sweeping fallen leaves. I appeared silently behind him. He smiled and warmly. I walked toward the rear courtyard. Outside the rear gate, my little deer was lying there, guarding the room where the abbot had passed. I pushed open the door. Nothing else remained. Only a single pitch-black Sharira. The abbot had burned through every last drop of life and spirit. The little deer dissolved into light and returned to the great cauldron. I picked up the Sharira and opened the ancient tome beside it. My name was written there. I walked to the ginkgo tree, leaves falling like snow. "Young lady, how long are you planning to stay up in that tree?" The girl in the canopy froze completely. She poked her head out, face written with disbelief. Chuxing, a steel-tempered phosphorescent ginkgo tree. She bared her teeth and provoked me with a flourish. I tilted my head up and regarded her with a calm gaze. The golden light in my eyes surged in an instant. She was so frightened she froze in place when unable to move. "Don't be afraid. I'm quite harmless." I reached out my hand to collect the monk's relic from her. It was an ancient cultivation method from a secret era. She couldn't learn it. She was still half a step short. I summoned the bronze cauldron. Golden light scattered down. The little deer dissolved into a drop of spirit dew and fell into her palm. This is the monk's fruit. You have taken it in. Study well. When the time comes, I'll show you the world. I turned, sensing the moment had reached its pinnacle. Spiritual energy poured from my whole being. It is time to face my tribulation.